Hi, my name is Gordon Burkell, and I'm with filmmakeru.com. Every week, we bring in experts to talk to you about their process as well as their ideas. And this week, we have Ross Shain here to talk about Boris FX. Ross, thank you for coming to the show.
Gordon, thanks a lot for having me today. Appreciate it.
I guess to start off, in terms of everything, you and I were just chatting, everything is sort of shifting online nowadays. Or sorry, shifting home, I guess I should say. So, how did you, as a team at Boris, work with various creatives in the industry to help them get their projects home?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, with COVID and everything happening this year, it's been a crazy time for all of us, and we're still trying to learn what is the new normal. But it's interesting for me. I've actually been working remote for 15 years. So I live in New York State, and I came from the Imagineer Systems Mocha team before Boris FX acquired us, and my team is based just in the UK. So I've been working with that team remote for many years, just basically alone in my office. So and you know first it was Skype and then Google Hangouts, and we had already adapted in Slack and adapted many working techniques that we could be online working remote together. In fact, Martin, our product manager, is in Australia. JP, who runs the Imagineer team, he's in the UK. Mary Poplin, who a lot of people know, it does a lot of tutorials for us as a product specialist. She's in Los Angeles. So the Mocha team was kind of virtual already. The Boris FX team, which is the sort of our HQ, our headquarters is in Boston, and is more of a traditional office, with people working and taking advantage of a conference room and daily meetings face to face, which
Mm-hmm.
it's very useful to have that face to face time, right? But we've managed the transition quite well. Luckily, we're making software, we're not making hardware, so we can share code quite easily, and we can collaborate on documents quite easily already. So I think for us, yeah, I think we made the transition pretty smoothly, um,
Well,
and luckily, yeah.
now you mentioned that you've been remote for a while. So, is there any pointers or tricks that you've picked up from all this time remote that you could recommend for post people?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, one of the things I learned early was to get dressed and try to there's a because some people might be working from home, right? You could sort of get into the habit of, I'm just going to kind of like roll out of bed and get online. But I think there is actually to get yourself up and kind of, whether it's you're going to go out for a coffee or go out for a run or do whatever kind of thing that you would do in a normal day, to kind of not get, and I think this as a society is actually a problem in some ways, because of phones, you roll out of bed and you're immediately working if you're checking your email. And I do think that just advice is certainly to try to create habits that are healthy for you before you immediately jump into work, right?
Yeah. So, do you keep your phone off until 9 o'clock or whenever the day starts?
Well, it's easy to preach, isn't it? No, I mean, I'm just as guilty as anyone because, especially because, the team that I'm working with in the UK, they've already been working for hours. So there is a balance. I actually have a small office in the town that I live in. So pretty early in New York State, the COVID was handled pretty well. So I made it a point to try to start getting into my office and getting out of the house and that kind of creating a good working pattern.
So, you said you came from Imagineer and over to Boris when they got acquired. So, how did you get started in the industry? What's your background there?
Sure. I've always been interested in visual effects and graphics, motion graphics, and as a child, I was way into stop motion and that kind of thing.
Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, Ray Harryhausen. I think Jason and the Argonauts, and there's the Sinbad Voyage of Sinbad movie. Some of my early memories of film. And as a teen, the just as silly as referencing the MTV IDs were so creative at the time. You know, a lot of stop motion, very wild animation. And so I studied filmmaking in college. And at the time that I was in college, yeah, I don't know if you can see the gray here, but at the time that I was in college, you know, film was still film. We had 60 millimeter flatbeds and learned about, you know, Steenbeck editing and everything like that, and cutting film. My senior year was we got a computer, which had it was basically like an Amiga, so early sort of video graphics days, and I gravitated to that. I just loved the idea of being able to animate things, and especially kind of going from like stop motion or even drawing on film to the idea if you could do this kind of stuff on a computer. That was huge. I worked in New York City for a while as an editor, and then I was also a musician for a while in my early days. But when I heard about Avid, just sort of the early to mid 90s, I got really excited about this idea of nonlinear editing. And I applied to work at Avid, and they hired me into customer support, actually, and technical support. So that, for me, that was almost like a grad school experience. And while at Avid, again, sort of early days of visual effects, Avid bought a couple companies, acquired a couple companies because they were really leading the game in nonlinear editing, you know, editing on a computer. This is long before Premiere was really a well-known tool. They bought a couple of companies that were doing basically doing more graphics and paint systems and running on Silicon Graphics. So I just got really excited about that and taught myself everything I could about these softwares, and became a specialist in a program called Matador, which was one of the first paint packages for SGI, and was adopted by like ILM and some of the early pioneers of visual effects as they made the transition from practical to, you know, digital. So I worked for Avid for a couple of years and left and worked as a compositor and a visual effects artist in New York City. And then at some point I was kind of getting burnt out on that lifestyle. New York City is very much a commercial town. The work's very, lots of commercials with short turnaround times and crazy hours. And I found Mocha, well, before it was called Mocha, I found the Imagineer team. They were just coming out with their early tools for planar tracking, motion effect, motion tracking. And I met the founder of the company, and it kind of snowballed very quickly. So I've been at this point working with the Mocha team for about 13 years, I think.
Now, so what in terms of, or what drew you to the editing community first then? Because it sounded like you were really into VFX and animation, but for some reason you went straight into editing.
Well, I think that just came from that came from film school and making that transition from cutting, you know, again, cutting on film to nonlinear editing. But also I think in some ways it was sort of about access. And at that time, this is kind of before After Effects, or After Effects was called COSA, you know, the very first version. And so if you wanted to do animation, you're kind of looking at a very expensive Silicon Graphics machine. You know, there certainly was some stuff coming out, but I think the access to the software, as well as sort of like this relationship that I ended up having with Avid, just exposed me to the editing market. And so, you know, I also just love storytelling and have a great respect for the art of editing. But through the relationship with Avid, it sort of led me from editing into kind of more like finishing, color correction, visual effects, and kind of back to the heart of where I really love was the sort of like the compositing visual effects aspect.
So now, what is new in Boris? Because I was watching some of the videos on your site recently, so I'm just wondering what's come out that we should be all aware of.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people know Boris FX. So we're pretty much one of the first plugin developers in the industry. We've been making plugins for 25 years. So when I was early at Avid, Boris FX came out and making plugins for Avid. And then as Premiere came out and, you know, different After Effects, obviously, Adobe bought Cosa to tie that together. Boris FX was making plugins, and there were other plugin companies too, like GenArts was a very popular plugin company, both from Boston. GenArts were making Sapphire plugins, and I use Sapphire all the time in my early days of compositing. So at this point, Boris FX is not just people knew Boris FX as sort of like the Continuum product, or just as called Boris FX. But over the years, through acquisitions, Boris FX encompasses Continuum, Sapphire, Mocha, and also Silhouette, which is a product that we acquired last year. And the team's been really, really busy for the last couple of years, not only developing each of these products, but also finding features that customers want from one product and merging them into another product. And just an example of that is Mocha, which is widely known as a motion tracking and rotoscoping tool. Mocha's inside all of our products now. So if you're an editor who's using Sapphire Glow and you wanted to isolate the glow in a certain area and have it follow, have my glasses glow or something like that, those tools are built right in, so you could do tracking and masking right within Sapphire or Continuum. So yeah, we've been very busy releasing all the products. Continuum, another thing to mention is that we went from sort of a model where we're releasing a new version of a product maybe once every couple of years, kind of following like what Adobe and the trend of the industry. We're really coming out with at least 1 or 2 major releases a year for every product. And to point out too, for people who don't know about it, sort of as the industry has evolved more to annual subscription model, I mean, you can buy our products if you don't want. There's still some people who don't like to pay the subscription. They want to own the product. You can do that with Boris FX, but we've also added annual, and to help customers deal with COVID, we've actually added monthly subscriptions, which is a great thing. So if you just wanted to, get Sapphire plugins for a particular editing project or a particular motion graphics project that you have, you could now get a monthly subscription to any of our products as well.
Fantastic. Now, in terms of Sapphire, this new project, what does it do? Like, what should we be excited about?
Yeah, so Sapphire is 300 very professional, beautiful looking plugins. It's widely used in visual effects, but also in editing. Sapphire is widely known for its glows, its lighting effects, lens flares. When you think of J.J. Abrams style Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel films, lens flares, a lot of those are actually Sapphire.
So you're going to get JJ to be a brand ambassador?
Well, I don't know about that. but certainly, whether it's ILM or Marvel or some of the big film companies like Framestore or Weta, these companies all use Sapphire very much. One of the nice things about this plugin package, or all our plugin packages, are that they're professional quality. So we're always updating them with things like that the industry needs. Like, for example, color management. I don't know how aware of you of like OCIO or ACES. Color management is something that's become a big deal, so that when you're working in a particular application, because these days it's not like a pure Avid workflow or a pure Adobe workflow. There's a project that is going to touch Avid, Adobe, Nuke, Flame, and Blackmagic Resolve. And so ensuring that a project retains proper color settings throughout the workflow is actually really important. So we added OCIO to Sapphire, for example. And to that point too, Sapphire as a plugin package, it supports all the same plugins, like that same lens flare could be applied in After Effects, and you can save that as a preset. You can open that up in Nuke or open that up in Flame. So we do have this sort of cross-host workflow that's pretty unique for the industry.
So one of the questions I always ask software developers and software companies, when you're talking to your clients, they're very much in a creative realm. So they're going to be trying to ask you for specific things, then how do you take that to the engineers and the developers and sort of communicate it to be able to get something that the creatives wants? Because they're two different sort of, I guess, approaches to doing things. One's very mathematical and the other's very creative.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And that's sort of actually one of the areas that I personally am very close to. I'm not a developer. I mentioned I went to film school, and I definitely, my interest is in the creative side. And we have multiple people like myself, product managers, who come from the industry, and we have real world experience. So it's very important for when you're building technology based products that the technology does not dictate to you, the creative person, the end user, how to do it. It's very important to work very closely with the creatives, with the people who actually use the software, to ensure that the interface is designed properly, that thing, even as silly as the feature is named properly for you, the user, not the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So we work really closely with our customers, and go back and forth with a lot of sort of beta testing and things like that, to ensure that the products are designed in the right way. We're also very making sure that the features we're developing is really, really important to us. And we do, especially before COVID, we did a lot more traveling to customer sites, and that's something that I would do, or some of my colleagues would do, is visit the TV stations, visit the film studios,
Mm-hmm.
try to talk to editors and artists, ask them what their pain points are. Essentially, one of the things that we really focus on as a plug-in company, because even though we make standalone applications as well, we're not Adobe, we're not Avid, we're still a relatively small company. So one of the things that we're always really focused on is trying to solve, like, what we call the pain points. Like, you're doing a repetitive task as an editor. Is there an easier way to solve this with a plugin? That kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that's where we see the value, as in the ecosystem of the post-production tools, is trying to save you time, trying to help you be more creative, that kind of thing.
Now, I have a few people who've been asking questions about software, but in particular, I guess to sum them all up, they're wondering what software does Boris work with or
Sure.
plug into?
Yeah. So across the board, we pretty much, all of our products support Adobe After Effects and Premiere. All of our products pretty much support Avid Media
Mm-hmm.
Composer. We also have OFX. For those that don't know, there's a OFX plugin format, which is an open framework that was founded, at this point, it's probably about 10, 15 years old, I believe. But what's nice about OFX is that an OFX supported plugin can work in many hosts. So for example, Autodesk Flame supports OFX, Foundry's Nuke supports OFX, Magic's Vegas Pro supports OFX, and Blackmagic, Fusion, and Resolve. These are some of the more popular OFX hosts. So that's a really nice thing. So then that ensures that Sapphire will run on all those applications, and same with Continuum or Mocha. There are some caveats across, because there are certain hosts that support Linux, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and of our products, Silhouette, Sapphire, and Mocha all support Linux, whereas Continuum doesn't. I would point out, for if anyone's listening, online on the Boris FX website, under support, you can find a host compatibility chart, and that will show you exactly which software works with every host.
Okay. Now, AI is a popular thing to talk about these days. So, is Boris involving AI in their software or in their plugins?
Currently, we're in sort of an R&D mode with AI. We're looking closely, and we've done a lot of test projects and things like that. None of the products that are on the market right at this point in time have active AI in the products themselves, but I definitely think that we'll be doing more with this in the future. You know, as someone who's focused on Mocha for a long time at this point, and with one of the core use cases of Mocha is rotoscoping.
Yep.
isolating a person off a background, whether it's for to replace the background or to isolate the effects, or God, there's lots of examples of why roto is used across the board in post. Um, we definitely see that there's some interest in the AI for segmentation, for isolating. It's a lot easier problem to solve on still photography, still photos, than over time. And I think people have probably seen what Adobe's done with like the roto brush over the years. And it's gotten better and better. And yeah, we have some pretty interesting thoughts and ideas on how to address some of these issues as well.
Well, and the reason I asked is because when I was watching the videos before, I think it was in Mocha, they were talking about expanding the side as the person moves. So like something that you couldn't before track, you had to like reset each time. Now it sort of expands. So I was wondering if it might have been included in that.
No, that's just some good programming and good user interface. I think what you're talking about is sort of a common challenge when you're like motion tracking the camera movement, is that if you look at this frame and as that door back there goes off screen, what do? The
Yeah.
trackers usually stop, and there's like intelligent ways that we can create offset tracking and unlink tracking, or occlusion tracking, different ways to solve difficult problems. And I'm sure that will just continue to get better and better.
Now, you guys won an Oscar, and recently an Emmy. So can you tell us about that? What did you guys win for?
Sure. As a team, we've won 2 Oscars and 3 Emmys, which is really great. The Mocha team was awarded an Oscar. These are called SciTech Awards in the world of the Motion Picture Academy. SciTech Awards, we won for Mocha. And I think the reason that they acknowledge the application as well as just what it does is that we kind of carved out an interesting place in the industry where before Mocha was around, motion tracking was done either with camera tracking or with point tracking. I don't want to get too technical, but we kind of created something called planar tracking, which is its own unique thing. And we're able to sort of solve very difficult motion tracking challenges quite easily, and also design an interface that would allow people to learn it quite easily. So it sort of brought motion tracking to the masses, is the way I look at it. And the Academy, acknowledged that. That was super exciting for us. And Mocha has been used on countless feature films over the years.
And what about for the Emmys?
Yeah, for the Emmys this past year, the Emmys, again, the Emmys has a sort of a science division where they acknowledge technology developments. And they gave an Emmy to 3 of our product teams, to the Sapphire team, which, the glows and the lens flares and been used on so many films over the years and television shows. Silhouette, which is sort of an unknown, in some ways it's it's used quite a lot in the industry, but for many years, the Silhouette team was not marketing hard. So it was kind of this unknown tool behind the scenes, which was used on rotoscoping and painting in the industry, used quite a bit in rotoscoping outsourcing. So Silhouette was given an Emmy as well as Mocha. So that was really, really exciting for us.
Wow. And do they, when you're doing the Oscars, do they time your speech? Do you have to like rush through it? Or?
They do. They played us off. No, the events. They have a special SciTech dinner for both events, which is great, and it was really fun. If you look at the Boris FX YouTube, you can actually the host. I'm spacing on her name, but she's an actress who hosts the Emmy, the SciTech Emmy Awards every year, and she like literally composes like crazy songs about all the winners. So she's saying a song about Mocha. I think it was set to the tune of Journey's "Don't Stop Believing." It was just so goofy and odd, but yeah,
that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really fun to be acknowledged in this way. Yeah.
Now, I have one last question that I like to ask everyone I interview, and that's what would you say, because we've been through this COVID chaos and everyone sort of had to stay at home for a while, what would you say are the films or shows that you've been watching that you would recommend to viewers?
Sure. Well, probably like many families, I think for the first month or two, my daughter's 17 years old. We binged The Office rewatched The Office on Netflix, but which was a lot of fun. And I think especially at the beginning of COVID, it was sort of like the safety, right? It was sort of like
Mhm.
it was such a fun show, and it also just like the predictability in that time where no one knew what was happening. I think, in fact, I think The Office went viral on Netflix. As far as the show that I've been watching quite a lot and really digging is Dark on Netflix, which is a German
Yeah.
sci-fi time travel show. I've really enjoyed the story, and as much as I love visual effects, I love visual effects that are not all about blowing stuff up or
Mhm.
gore or whatever. I love that when the effects are integral to the story, and I think they've really subtly used visual effects, and it's just a great writing, great casting, great directing. So I really enjoyed Dark.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for letting us interview, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Gordon, thanks a lot for your time. I really
No
appreciate
problem.
it.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.